February 23rd, 2026. And I'm going to do the boilerplate just because we don't want to get charged with violating open meeting law. So, pursuant to Chapter 22 of the Acts of 2022 as amended, this meeting is being conducted in a remote format. The public has been provided with adequate alternative means of access via Zoom, as noted in the posted meeting notice, along with access and participation instructions. As chair, I hereby notify all participants that this meeting is also being recorded by the town through Hadley Media and will be made accessible to the public. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, any person who intends to record or transmit this meeting must inform the chair at this time. Anybody else recording?
Randy, I just need to make a point of order. Hadley Media is not recording this meeting. I am recording this meeting and will provide it to them for broadcast at a later date. Alex is not available right now.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. So we have two items on the agenda today. Item number one is solar landfill project update, and then we'll be going into executive session, not returning into open session. So with that, Mr. Doctor and Mr. Parmar have a report for us, I believe, or something relative to the solar on the landfill.
Yes, we do. Thank you for having us today. As you said, I'm here with the coach. Shardul and I are co-chairs of the Solar Task Force. The task force is made up of Kayla Lubrio from the Concom, Shardul, myself, John LaPere, and Jane Nevin-Smith, the Select Board. The Solar Task Force was tasked with exploring use of the Hadley landfill as a solar energy production facility that would bring income to the town. While it may have been more profitable for the town to develop and own the asset, it would be extremely expensive upfront to begin this process. And I understand the town's out of money. We were approached by two developers who were experienced with large solar projects. They act as asset owners, and we've compared the two proposals, and today we'd like to recommend to the Select Board that we contract with SunWealth, which offers a higher income to the town. They've got extensive experience in the field. They've invested over $256 million in communities and developed over 750 projects. In addition to the pilot payment that they would pay the town in lieu of real estate taxes, which would be about $13,000 per year and go up annually with inflation. They've most importantly offered a reduction in the town's energy costs worth approximately $140,000 per year and increasing with inflation over time. In total, over the 25-year life of the project, this will earn the town $4.167 million, it's estimated. Essentially how it works is SunWealth will keep 70% of the income generated by the sale of the electricity that is produced by the project, and then they will allocate the remaining 30% of this income to the town's monthly energy bill. There is no battery storage with this proposal. There is no cost to the town except a $950 upfront charge to join a nonprofit known as Power Options, which will act as the town's go-between with SunWealth during the initial phase of the project. We're here tonight to get a vote from the Select Board to continue forward with this project, to enter into a letter of intent with SunWealth. A draft is included in the record. The letter of intent and all contract documents would be sent through the Select Board office to the attorneys, of course. And we're also here to get a vote from the Select Board to allocate $950 to join Power Options. Because incentives are expiring on the federal level, time is of the essence with this, and we appreciate you guys meeting today.
Okay, thank you for that. I'd like to hear what Shardul has to say about the companies we're dealing with, because I know he tends to be very thorough in his investigations when it comes to spending money. So, Mr. Parmar, please.
Yeah, I think the companies are, all reputable. They all have a track record. It's, they're not startups or anything like of that such. And in terms of the town's investment, uh, it's basically zero because we're only, really our investment is $950. We have this unused piece of property that I know it's been talked about, in previous meetings that the town wants to go and kind of utilize its unused property, and this is a great example of great reuse of an asset that the town has to generate clean energy and also pretty good revenue long term, and basically achieves all of the missions that whether we had done it ourselves um, at significantly less cost or to the taxpayers and at a benefit that again we're not liable for removing it. We're not liable for its operation, its maintenance. So I think it's a home run in my opinion. I don't see any real downsides to it.
Thank you. Any comments from the board?
Question?
Yeah, I just
Oh,
have a couple questions.
okay.
Go ahead, Molly.
Okay, thanks, David. Just in terms of, you said obviously they're not new to this, that they have several other successful installations. Have you spoken to any other municipalities that have engaged with them?
No, we have not.
Okay, so that would be a logical next step, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I think we could definitely talk to other operators. I think what we wanted to bring this today is just kind of if the general, I guess, structure of the deal, whether or not it's this company or another company, we just kind of wanted to bring the select board aware of the options. And again, moving forward, I think going forward with Power Source is kind of at a minimum, we should at least move forward with that because that also opens us up for that vetting process because they've already vetted quite this company that we're working with and any other companies that we are working with. So they're really the ones that will go and do kind of the due diligence for us because they've already done everything that we need to get done.
David?
So, and Michael and Turtle, thanks for your work on this. My only, I guess, concerns or questions would be, I know we have ongoing maintenance, testing, DEP requirements with the landfill cap. So one of the questions I'd like you to ask when you get to this is whether they're going to take over the mowing and maintenance for the landfill, because I know right now DPW does that occasionally, mows the old landfill site. Obviously, that's going to be pretty hard to do when there's a bunch of solar panels on there, and that'd be great to take off our plate if they could maintain the whole inside of the fence there. That would be a huge plus for the DPW. And then the other issue is if there is any damage to the cap, obviously it needs to be a contractual agreement that they take care of repairing that or fixing that. And the only other worry that I have is, and Caleb probably knows this, but there's ongoing water testing and other testing for DEP for a closed landfill. So in the event they found something that required work on the landfill cap, I just don't want to be liable for it if, say, we have to remove half the solar panels to get in there and fix whatever and then replace them. So I just want to make sure that we don't have any liability outstanding if DEP comes in and says, hey, you have to fix this or address this kind of thing. So that's all. But I love
all great points. I think those are all the things that we can go and stipulate with any agreement that we have with them. That if those are things that the town feels that is necessary, then that's fine. That can be in that agreement that they're maintaining it, which makes sense because we don't want our staff or equipment being in there and damaging something that they have. It makes sense for them to be responsible for those things. The type of, I guess, the structures are going to be ballast. Essentially, there's going to be there are no penetrations. So the way that the solar panels are affixed is that they're just weighted down with ballast. So there will be no penetrations. There'll be plenty of space to do continual monitoring and all of those other things. But we will, again, as part of the agreement, make sure that they're responsible for any damage that they do, and then B, if there is any work that's required on site, they would, they would be the responsible party to remove and reinstall. That would not be on us because we wouldn't touch their equipment anyway. As a landlord of like a commercial landlord, typically those are all stipulated in ground leases. And usually the landlord doesn't get involved when it's tenant equipment, whether it's removing or maintaining it or whatever. That's really on the tenant to be responsible for those items.
Yeah, my one thing was, and I get that completely. It's just that, typically, let's say DEP comes in and says, "Hey, you have to do X on the site," and in typical town fashion, it takes us 6 months or a year to figure out the money and get things done and get things fixed. With lots of these on airports, I know there's always the trying to recoup the lost revenue because, okay, they had to pull their equipment off for 6 months to fix a problem. So now they're going to say to the town, all right, you owe us 6 months worth of solar generation that we didn't get because of some sort of problem. So I know there's a lot to work out. That was just my concern, more along the lines of the small possibilities that something happened. I don't want them coming after us. That's all. So just something to look at.
Yeah, and in those situations, like I said, those would all be stipulated in any type of agreement that we would have. And when you go and look at the long term, this is going to be a 20-year or more agreement, and so they're going to make a lot of money, and they have in their agreement, they've provisioned for all of these things. They know that there's going to be downtime, and there's going to be issues. So they're looking at it long term. And I think, again, knowing that this is a kind of an active property in terms of environmentally, they would be aware of those stipulations. But again, all great points and all things that we would need to put in when we make an agreement with them.
Good. Tony, I see your hand, but I'm going to wait till we get through the select board, then I'll recognize you. Jane?
Yeah, I just want to say that in doing this, the transfer station would remain, but its footprint might change. And I'm sure it would be separated from the solar aspect by the solar would be fenced off and the landfill would be its own or recycle transfer station, not landfill. Transfer station would be fenced in its own right. So
Okay.
its footprint would change slightly.
And will that cause us any issues with the owners of the transfer station, the company that runs it?
Well, we're the owners and they have a lease with us.
Okay, well, with it,
They'd have the same amount of space, they'd just be condensed into a different area.
Can I just interject that at one point we were trying to maximize the number of panels on the property, and we were hoping to shrink Solid Waste Solutions' footprint substantially. The proposal as it now stands has shrunk in terms of the amount of photovoltaics in place, primarily to get under the battery requirement so that we were not required to have a battery storage. And given that, it's unlikely that we're going to be it's on the landfill hump basically itself. It's not sprawled out over Solid Waste Solutions' current operating, so it's going to have minimal to no impact on them.
And their operation is pretty limited, and it seems like to me that site could use a little bit of efficiency anyway, because it seems like they're sprawled out with not a lot of things going on.
Anybody else on the board have anything?
No, I
I'm gonna
think
say,
I just wanted to thank the committee for the work that they did. I think the right players are at the table, especially in light of David's questions, having Kayla front and center is critical on this. And, in terms of just the concept and the desire to save the town money over the long run, I think it's absolutely worth continued exploration.
okay, and then I just want to be clear about one thing. We're talking about a letter of intent, and then the word agreement comes up. So the letter of intent is not going to lock us into anything. Is that correct? It's just going to allow us to have conversations and get the final stuff put into place, the final documents that will be necessary to protect the town in particular.
That is correct.
This
Okay.
is non-binding.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Tony.
Thank you. I do have a couple of quick questions that I wanted to ask. I'll take a kind of a point of personal privilege since I understand that it was my original idea. I brought this forward at town meeting that we should have a citizens committee to study this, and the Climate Change Committee even publicly thanked me for that. Although my original concept was to have the citizens committee done before we spent the $12,500, which will round up to $13,000. I thought we should study it. Now, my first question would be to the solar siting committee would be, where have you been? Because there was this committee was formed in late 2024. I believe it held an introductory meeting in February of 2025, and then there was another meeting in April, and that was basically the last meeting that was held publicly by this committee. So whatever was done, and you were just thanked for your work, I don't know what that work is. I would have been happy to see what was being done. There was a meeting in April, and at that meeting, again, there was nothing else until February 10th when the group got together for a 30-minute meeting, which I don't even think there was a quorum there, and no votes were taken. So this proposal that you're looking at to the select board, it's never been voted on. There was no vote at that February 10th meeting. The committee was not there. There were Michael Doctor and Mr. Parmar were there, but there was no vote. All of this work that's been done, I'm not sure how it could have been done legally, but there were no public meetings. There was one in April. My second point, and it's related, is that, well, obviously there was a lot of work going on. There were no public meetings, but it was going on. And one of the primary things that was going on was negotiations in secret with a solar developer. And I'll illustrate my point very quickly, is that at that meeting in April, Mr. Doctor said that there was a farmer. The main problem with the project was the connecting line, which is very expensive and could be prohibitive. He said that there was a farmer who was interested in connecting, but that farmer was not interested in contributing any money at all. And that farmer was Joe Sikowski, and he said, don't expect any money. A few weeks later, at the Climate Change Committee, Jack Sikowski said, well, there's a farmer who's interested, and he may be interested in committing some funding. Later on at the select board meeting, Jane Nevinsmith said, a farmer is definitely interested in contributing financially to this project. Again, no public meetings from the siting committee. This is just what we're hearing through liaisons. And later on, at the agenda, on the February 10th agenda, there was a solar developer there, the Sikowski solar development representative, and they suggested that they were maybe interested in a 50-50 split for that part of the cost. I don't even know how that plays into this. But clearly, there were negotiations going on. Those negotiations were successful because originally Sikowski Solar was not interested in contributing. They went to possibly a 50-50 split. That was all done secretly. I have a major problem with that. This was a process that I suggested, that actually I didn't suggest. It was the town. The state has a process. And as far as I know, and I may be wrong because it was all done behind closed doors, none of that work has been done. They're supposed to meet with the planning board, get clearance from the planning board, the conservation committee, to see if there are issues here. I don't know if that's been done. It wasn't just mentioned there. I don't know whatever happened to the connection, which is very expensive. That wasn't mentioned here. That was noted even on the February 10th agenda as the primary challenge was a connection line. Here it wasn't even mentioned. There were two companies mentioned at that February on the agenda. Neither of them was mentioned. So without I don't know if any of this work has been done. And it doesn't mean, oh, I talked to somebody on the conservation committee and they said it's all good, or I looked at some documents and they said, oh, that the solar cap is fine. That doesn't cut it. My third question is, where is our study? And what happened to the $13,000? At the town meeting, we voted $13,000 for a study. It was on the agenda. I called it an agenda, but anyway, it was on there for $13,000, rounding up on a study. Mrs. Keegan, you called it a feasibility study. Multiple times you said this is a feasibility study. Now that's an actual document. That's not you didn't say this was similar to a feasibility study or this was in effect a feasibility study. You said we were getting a feasibility study. It wasn't. And I mentioned that at town meeting and I was shut down immediately. So here we are, more than a year later or whatever it is. I don't see a feasibility study. I don't see any study. I don't even know, and they didn't mention it, what happened to the $13,000. That was for an engineering study to a different company that wasn't even mentioned just now in the presentation. Now, these companies that are coming in to possibly lease that land, they're going to be doing their own engineering, or maybe they already have. So we spent $13,000 on something, but these gentlemen here didn't even mention it. Now, one of them mentioned that we don't have any money. Well, $13,000 isn't going to solve our budget problems, but what happened to the $13,000? And it wasn't for a study. And I hope at some point the select board will explain why we voted on $13,000 for a feasibility study when it doesn't exist. It was an engineering plan from the start. And I have a major problem with that. I think that's disqualifying, and all the select board is complicit in that because that's what you presented it as. And and you can tell me right now, is there a feasibility study? You can just hold it in hand. Is there a feasibility study that I can look at, or anyone in Hadley can look at?
Yes.
Okay, forward it to me, please. It was an engineering plan from the beginning.
Correct.
Right. Okay, that's not a feasibility study. Completely different thing. Words mean things.
It is feasible because we looked at.
I'm speaking now, Mr.
Dardo,
hang on.
Whether or not you want to play semantics or not.
Semantics.
Chardol,
but that is a feasibility study.
I have the
As a
floor.
person who does.
Thank you.
I understand, Mr. Chardul, that you like to shout people down. You're good at that, but you're not going to shout me down or silence me. I know you like to stand up there and yell at people, but we're not going to do that today.
Randy,
Tony,
could you please
same
deal
goes
with
for
this?
you.
I'm not going to be ambushed.
Stick to the point, Tony.
I'm trying to.
Then do it.
The point is that this committee has failed completely in what they were supposed to do. They didn't even meet. Everything was done in secret. We don't even know if any of this work has been done. They met with two companies, which anybody could have done.
Do you want me to respond to any of this?
Just hang on until he's done, and then you can, Michael.
Okay.
They failed to meet publicly, and I wish it throws me off when you keep interrupting me. I'm trying to wrap up here. You failed to meet, which was your publicly and transparently, and now you're asking to sign up on something. You're just saying, oh, it's only this or only that. You're not mentioning what happened to the connection lines or anything. I don't know if any of the work's been done. It's absurd for you to come here and ask the select board or any of us to support voting on this when we don't even know what you've done. We don't have kings. You don't just do this on your own and then come out and say, oh, this is a great plan. What happened to the $13,000? You don't mention that. I have plenty more that I could say, but I think I've said enough. And please, one last thing. Don't tell me it's a study when it's an engineering plan, because that's easy to see. That's a completely different thing. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, Michael.
Yeah,
please.
The $13,000 that you all allocated was to commission Eversource to conduct an engineering analysis of the site of the there was an original proposal from Solar Design Associates which proposed the use of the site, and then it went to Eversource to evaluate that. So that is what the money was spent on. There were at least three or four public meetings on this. We did take a hiatus when the Big Beautiful Bill passed, and it looked like there was no way forward until these other proposals came forth. All of those meetings we had were public. Tony, you were at our last meeting, which was a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, I think, are there other points that I have not addressed here?
The issue of the power joining of the two properties.
Yes, I did make a snide remark extremely early on in this process, joking about a fellow farmer wanting to pay money in that was a joust at Joe Sikowski. Regardless, it's completely immaterial. The way these deals work is that the utility company decides that a project is a go, and then they allocate the costs of upgrading their grid according to who and which projects are going to benefit from it. So we have nothing to do with that agreement whatsoever. The utility company will say this is a go, and then they'll say the town's project is 1 megawatt, the Sikowski Farm project is 1 megawatt, then we're going to split it 50-50. This is the cost of the running the lines. So they're going to split it up. So there's been no negotiation whatsoever between us and Joe, other than talking to his intermediary, who's been helpful, quite frankly, to the town in terms of pushing this project along, because he has a self-interest in sharing that cost, because it is a substantial cost, and it is what makes both of the projects feasible, is the ability to spread those costs.
And the fact is, when we started this, the federal credits and the benefits were completely different. Now there's a completely different scheme, and with the bills that came out, now all the benefits and the credits that we would have received are no longer feasible. And the fact that the town is under financial constraints, we had to pivot. And the fact is that this and the $13,000 can be recouped, because the interconnection, all of these things that we're talking about, the town no longer has to go and spend the money for these things. It's all depending on the developer. And as far as the planning board, all of these other things that need to happen, that's well in the future. We can't go and move forward with somebody and have them do all of the due diligence and until we decide on what direction this project is going. And the direction that we decided, based on everything that we saw, is that this would go and help the town without having any financial obligations. And in terms of what we're talking about today, we're just talking about a letter of intent. We're not doing engineering. We're not going to the planning board. This is just a matter of just bringing the select board on board and the different options that are available. The town can do whatever they want. We're just presenting what was decided. And we were trying to figure out all of that time what's going on with all of these credits and what's available. So we were doing our due diligence during that period of time. So it's kind of crazy to say that we haven't done any work. We have been doing work, but it's all a matter of trying to figure out what's available under the new scheme that is now in the country and in terms of solar.
Okay, David.
I know that 8+ years ago, when we started looking at this, the biggest challenge or the biggest hurdle to overcome was three-phase power getting down to the landfill site. And when we looked at it initially, there was the thought of, oh, maybe Eversource would pay for that. That went away. They were no longer interested in spending that kind of money. So then you were looking at $1 million to $1.5 million to get power down to the site. Without that, the landfill site is useless for solar generation. Has to get from the landfill to the grid somehow. So I like this idea because, yes, it doesn't cost us anything up front. It will get three-phase power down there. And in 25 years, when their lease is up, if solar is still the best thing and still something that is, feasible at the time and cost effective, then now we have our three-phase power down there. So that allows the town to do something down there at a later date without having to spend the $1.5 million. It's not like they're going to rip the three-phase power out when their land lease is up. And that belongs to Eversource. That also opens it up to all the farmers in the area there now having the possibility of maybe having solar on their land, which is a good thing. So just wanted to just go ahead.
Jane.
Yeah, one of the issues is, and the reason we asked to have this on the agenda soon, is Eversource isn't going to continually buy power. And we want to be in a group where they say, yes, we still need power and we will go with this project. If we hem and haw, there are other people. Everybody knows there's money in solar. And we don't want to be turned down because we're too late.
Okay. Tony's next, then then I'll get back to you, Chardot.
Just very quickly, I didn't say that you didn't do the work. I said the work that wasn't done publicly. And I think, again, it's absurd for this group. And again, anybody can go back and look at the postings for the meeting. There was one in February, introductory, nothing happened. April, and then I don't believe there was anything until the last meeting, which was a half-hour meeting. And again, I don't think there was a quorum at that meeting, and there was no vote. So whether or not this is a good idea, I don't know, and I can't have any confidence in it because it wasn't done publicly. And for the select board, this is you're responsible for oversight, not me. Why aren't you asking how often did you meet? Why didn't you meet? All these things were going on, as the gentleman just said. This was happening. We got these responses. We were talking with this Psychowski Solar. We're talking, and all of that should have been done publicly. And you cannot ask ask the town to support something that has not been done publicly and transparently. And another point that I want to address is that you do go to the planning board, you do go to the conservation board before. You don't, because you don't even know if it's feasible. That's on this from the state, has a step-by-step process on how to do it. And apparently you didn't look at that, but that's what you do. You go and even see if this was possible. That's why a feasibility study would have been the right thing to do. We skipped that. We didn't do that. And here we are saying we got to do this. And I at town meeting back 2 years ago, it was the same thing. We have to do this quickly. We're going to lose out. And now we're hearing the same thing. We have to lose out quickly, or we're do this quickly, we're going to lose out. If it had been done publicly, I could sit here and make a decision as a voter and say, maybe this is something I can support. I won't support something that has been done in secret. I just can't, because I don't know I don't know what's taken place. And for the select board to say, oh, this is a good idea, it really worries me. When I just told you that this board didn't meet. This committee met once, basically one meeting, until the half-hour meeting, which they didn't have a quorum for a week or two ago. So you're gonna do what you're gonna do, but I think this is absurd, and I think that this committee has failed us. I think the vote you should take is not to sign on to anything. It should be to dissolve this committee and start over, or start looking at this and do it the right way. And that's my suggestion now: is dissolve this committee, take that vote, do it right, step by step, openly, transparently. And then we'll see what we got. And if it's there, we'll go ahead and do it.
Chardot.
I just want to say, in terms of, forget about solar, let's just look at it in terms of, we have an asset from a business decision, and we want to go and generate income from that asset. Forget about if this was a solar, it could be, I don't know, an oil rig. I don't care what it is. What I'm saying is that this is something where the town is going to generate income with zero outlay. Forget about what this committee did. We're just giving you options. You can go, and that doesn't mean that even with moving forward with $950, that this option is viable or not viable. We've talked to Kayla. She doesn't feel environmentally that there were any issues in terms of planning board and so on and so forth. Yes, we haven't gone there, but it's a piece of property. We've looked at the boundaries. There's not a lot going on over there in terms of activity. And as far as my experience in terms of actually making millions and millions of dollars worth of real estate in this town, I don't see any issues with the planning board that are apparent in terms of access, in terms of boundaries, or in terms of anything that they would be interested in. But regardless of all of that, this, in terms of a business decision, makes a lot of sense. If somebody's willing to give you hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for basically a garbage pile, then it makes a lot of sense. And I just want to make a clear point. We didn't speak with any farmers. There were no backroom discussions. There was no in terms of other policies. We were trying to figure out exactly what makes the best sense for the town. Now, did we go and do individually research on everything that was going on? Yes, we did. And the fact is that it doesn't take a genius to figure out that without credits, with the way that the federal government was moving towards its aggressive anti-solar movement, that it doesn't make, and the fact that the town is under financial constraints, it really doesn't make a lot of sense. It doesn't take a rocket scientist or multiple meetings to figure that out. I think that was pretty apparent with the way the direction of the town was going. So regardless of solar, regardless of anything that you have opinions, Amy made a point at the last select board meeting about, you reusing town property. Here's an example. This is a great example and in terms of our outlay of $13,000, we recouped that within 12 months of this thing going online. So it really doesn't make, to me, a lot of sense to put this down when we could be generating, again, great income for the town with no financial outlay.
Molly.
Yep, I was just hoping to maybe move us along on this and focus on next steps. So from a practical standpoint, it sounds like, because time is of the essence, the goal would be to have our board vote today to approve the letter of intent, which again is non-binding. It just allows us to continue to garner information and do our full due diligence, as of course it would be appropriate for us to do. My own experience with the planning board is they like to know when things are going on, but if you go in front of the planning board and they're going to fire 25 questions at you and you maybe only be able to answer 3 of them, it's going to be frustrating for everybody. So I understand why it makes sense that you have not gone in front of the planning board at this point. But can I assume, I hate to use that word, that we signed the letter of intent, there's more due diligence being done, and then there would be next steps that would formally involve conservation, planning board, et cetera. And I believe that it would be at the select board would actually be the body, if you will, making that request, correct?
I don't, who knows the answer to that?
Yes, the town would be signing, so therefore the select board, the letter of intent, and therefore it's a town issue. And the letter of intent has I think it's 270-day period in which to fulfill that letter of intent. And if we don't, then it's canceled by either party. But we need to keep, the thing is, this will take, so SunWealth will deal with going to the planning board, doing the studies and making all the other things that Tony has mentioned.
Okay, so David, I see your hand, but just hang on one second. Having represented people before various boards in this town and others, I always recommend to my clients that we start with the least expensive aspect of a potential project to make sure that we don't spend money foolishly. So if it's going to cost the town $950 to get this thing moving forward, and as I understand it, the onus of everything will be on the developer, not the town, and they're going to have to jump through all the hoops that Mr. Fiden is concerned about, then I have no issue with this whatsoever. And again, it's non-binding. It's going to give us an opportunity to see if will actually work for everybody. And to me, it's free money. So that's what I need to say. David, go ahead.
You took the wind out of my sails, Randy. I was basically going to say the onus is on the developer to prove to the planning board and pay for their engineers, their experts, their design staff to satisfy the planning board's questions and requirements. So I think it's a great thing, and I was just going to make a motion to approve the letter of intent.
Second.
Okay. Motion by David, second by Jane. Any further discussion from the board? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Roll call vote. Phil,
Yes.
Keegan,
Yes.
Iser,
Yes.
Nevin Smith,
Yes.
and Parsons.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everybody, on that. That item is.
Randy, I would like to
Yes.
make a motion that we join Power Options as a 1-year subscription, which will help us forward this process. That's the $950.
Okay, so Jane made a motion. Somebody want a second for discussion because I have questions.
Second.
Okay, motion by Jane, second by David. Is this an ongoing subscription, or is it just a 1-year thing?
It's a 1-year thing during the process of getting started,
Okay.
Which might take 2 years.
possibly,
Possibly.
but unlikely.
And the way it is written is that they don't want you to just cancel your subscription afterwards. So what they do is they ask you after the project is done that you pay for 1 more year at that point, and then you're done with that as an obligation.
So you're talking potentially 1 to 3 years of
Correct.
paying $960 or whatever it is.
Correct.
Okay.
And it's things that we can go, and when we negotiate any agreement, we can get we could recoup all of those costs that we're incurring.
Okay, anybody else? Hearing none, roll call vote, please.
Roll call vote. Phil,
Yes.
Keegan,
Yes.
Iser,
Yes.
Nevin Smith,
Yes.
and Parsons.
Yes.
Okay, we all good with that?
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael and Shardul. Appreciate your time and their efforts to date.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay, Amy, can you help us out?
Sure can. I'm going to make a motion that we enter into executive session pursuant to Open Meeting Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct a strategy session in preparation for potential negotiation with non-union personnel. In this case, it would be a new town administrator. We're not going to be reconvening an open session today.
Second.
As chair of the Hadley Select Board, I state that the board has moved and seconded to enter into executive session, and that I state that discussing the matter in open session will have a detrimental impact on the bargaining position of the town of Hadley. And as I said earlier, we will not be reconvening in open session. Roll call vote, please, Jennifer.
Roll call vote. Phil,
Yes.
Keegan,
Yes.
Iser,
Yes.
Nevin Smith,
Yes.
and Parsons.
Yes.